What's up, everybody? Matt Gajewski here. Back again talking college football, and today we are getting into the Week 12 main slate on Saturday. If you enjoy this content, please consider subscribing to the channel or leaving a like. That helps a small channel like this a ton, so thank you very much if you've done that. It does mean a lot. If you have requests for our Friday show, anything we miss on this video, please let me know. I know there's a lot of big games we probably won't get to, so hopefully that video will be the place. Last thing, if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, no place else to start. Texas, Georgia, huge clash in the SEC. Georgia is a 6-point favorite. The total is 49 points. Texas is coming off a bye in this game. They most recently beat Vanderbilt by 3 points, and they've been living dangerously for a while now. Even before the Vandy game, they had 2 overtime wins in back-to-back weeks, Mississippi State and Kentucky. So they've been living dangerously and coming down to the wire in very close competitive games. Meanwhile, Georgia's been on a warpath offensively. They just beat Mississippi State 41-21, beat Florida 24-20. That Florida team a little better than a lot of people think, even though they're not live to make a bowl or anything. They're still giving a test to basically all of their opponents every single week. Ask Texas, they lost to that team. Georgia beat Ole Miss 43-35. They beat Auburn. Kentucky, only loss in SEC play came to Alabama, where they had an 80% post-game win expectancy. So very good season so far for Georgia. Could have even been better. Now, in this game, for injuries, Texas is mostly healthy at this point. They are getting back Michael Toff, allegedly. All signs point to this being his return date. Wingo had a thumb injury in the last game, but apparently that's all good. Georgia has a couple guys. Obviously, they lost Colby Young, broken ankle. Lawson Lucky went down in their last game, but he did return to the sidelines. Jordan Hall, DeMello Jones, and Kyron Jones are the other names to watch. Jordan Hall being a bigger one at defensive tackle. For Texas, Arch Manning's played a little better of late. His 2 best games are probably in their most recent contest. Now, he puts up 674 yards and 6 scores. Who did that come against? Well, Mississippi State and Vanderbilt. Those aren't the best defenses in the SEC, but it's at least noteworthy he's playing a little better. Completion percentage up to 62.5%, 7.9 yards per attempt. He has taken 18 sacks, which is not great, and he does have 12 turnover-worthy plays, but again, those are mostly front-loaded this year, so a better showing from Arch Manning. And part of the reason, I think his offensive line being fully healthy can't be overstated. It's a thin unit, mainly just because of youth. So you're really reliant on guys like Trevor Gooseby, DJ Campbell. They need to play. And Campbell was injured for a stretch of time in their last month. He's back now, and it appears now off the bye he should be fully healthy. When they have everyone, they're all above average. 78th in pass blocking, 30th in run blocking. There's a ceiling that's higher than this just based on health. And it's very important to keep Arch clean if they can. Because skill players aren't bad for this team. I've expected more throughout the year, but now they're finally fully healthy at receiver, assuming there's nothing going on with Wingo's thumb. DeAndre Moore, Livingstone, Mosley, they've all been good in their roles. DeAndre Moore actually hasn't played a lot of snaps. He's been trending down, and maybe that's just Mosley getting healthier. He missed the first month of the season. And Wingo leads the team. They need him out there. The offensive line maybe can also do a better job for Contravion Wisner, who's only at 3.8 yards per carry this year. CJ Baxter filling in at 4 yards per carry. They've been a pretty bad rushing attack. Now, Baxter's been hurt. Wisner's had to lift a lot with the injuries and limited play. But the offensive line being 30th in run blocking and fully healthy should help them there as well. The question is, can they do all this against Georgia, whose defense has been a little up and down? They have some weird statistics. They don't rush the passer at all. This is one of the worst pass rushes in the SEC. They are 128th, but their run defense is stout, top 20. Part of the reason they're built sort of inside out, their best player on that defensive line is Kristen Miller. He's an excellent defensive tackle. Now, losing Jordan Hall could be a problem, but still, they're deeper on the interior, and their problem is the edge. Once you get to the back 7, they're studs and there are weaknesses. CJ Allen, awesome linebacker. Dalen Everett, KJ Bolden, pretty good in the secondary. But you've been rotating some of the other positions. We just saw Daniel Harris come back. I mean, you've been reliant on freshmen like Ellis Robinson. There are just ways to score on Georgia if you can find those avenues. I tentatively think Texas with a fully healthy offensive line is going to be able to pick on those couple weaknesses that this Georgia defense has, like we've seen other teams do. Teams like Ole Miss, Alabama for parts of that game. Tennessee put up 41 points. So it's definitely possible if you can find the weak points. Georgia, meanwhile, has been on a warpath. This offense is awesome. Gunnar Stockton, 72.5% completion percentage, 8.3 yards per attempt. Somehow the guy's only taken 5 sacks the entire year. Now, the turnover-worthy plays up at 8. Maybe those could come down a little bit. But, man, Gunnar Stockton having a quietly very nice season in the SEC. And their offensive line is fully healthy, too. I almost think that's become a problem for them. They have apparently 6 guys they want to force into 5 spots. I think if you're picking the worst one, it's probably Gaston. I wish they would trim the fat and just play, like a line composed of Monroe Freeling, Ernest Green, Dontrell Glover, Drew Bobo, and Micah Morris. But I think they're still trying to get Gaston out there. Anyway, this unit has climbed to 16th in pass blocking, 32nd at run blocking. There's a chance they're even higher because they played basically the first month, 2 months of the season, 6 weeks, whatever it was, without at least one of these players, and in many games without 2 of them, sometimes 3. This Georgia O-line is a lot better, and it's helped everything. You're now seeing Nate Frazier, Chauncey Bowens, both above 5.5 yards per carry. More time for Stockton means more efficiency for the pass catchers like Zachariah Branch. Now, they don't have a lot besides him. You'll see them play a lot of 12 personnel. Hope Lucky's back to help out Oscar Delp there, but even if not, they're very deep. The only real problem and concern I have moving forward is London Humphreys as your wide receiver too. Now, they're kind of doing that by committee. You just wish it was a little better if you're Georgia. Zachariah Branch is a great one, but you don't have a lot of elite options behind them, more role players. So if I was to pick a concern, it would be that. You're facing a good Texas defense who gets back Toff. That's huge. They've kind of trailed a little bit in coverage without him. Recently, you've seen a lot of teams with success. Diego Pavia, 9.5 yards per attempt. Blake Shapen, 8.9. DJ Lagway, 10.6. No one's been able to run. This defensive line is still very good, and the edge rushers are the strength of that team. That's how you get to being a top 6 run defense and pass rush. It's like Colin Simmons, Ethan Burke. They're awesome. Now, getting back Toff should be a huge upgrade for that secondary, and that's been where the weak links are. It's teams beating this unit over the top. Toff, he's their best player. He's going to be the leader of that defense. I don't know if it's enough. You still have a multiple Georgia offense that attacks you in so many ways. Good offensive line should neutralize this pass rush. They've run the ball well, and I think they'll run the ball with some efficiency in this game. I wouldn't expect it to be up at 5.5 yards per carry like they have been. And then when you need it, throwing the ball over the top, they should have some success as long as they avoid the studs of the secondary, mainly Toff. We took an over in this game at 48. It's leaving that number quickly. I'm seeing some 49, some 48.5. I think you can take that right now. I wouldn't go much further than 49. Texas is playing relatively fast, relatively pass heavy. Georgia's more balanced, but recently they have increased their pace and their pass rate. And some of this is just opponent driven. I would expect Georgia to be more towards balanced. With the offensive lines, especially being mainly healthy for the first time all year, that should neutralize some of the defensive advantages that typically these teams hold. Over 48 is the number we have. 49, if you need to take a number, we'll take the over in this game. It's a weird week in college football. Some of the biggest games are in the G5. It's a huge week for them, and one of them is South Florida Navy. Both of these teams have their eyes set on winning the American and heading to the college football playoff. USF has the much better percent chance of making it, largely because Navy has not played a rigorous schedule at all. They've lost their last 2 games to North Texas and Notre Dame. Prior to that, they played UAB, Tulsa, Rice, Air Force, Temple, and FAU. They won all those games, yes. Some of them were very close. They beat Air Force by 3. They beat Temple by 1. It's just not been the best body of work for Navy. Now, USF has been awesome. Only real blips on the radar. They got crushed by Miami. It's kind of what you expect. I think that was the expectation against Florida as well. Unfortunately for Florida, South Florida gets the upset win, so that's kind of their marquee win. Otherwise, they lost to Memphis in a very close, competitive back-and-forth game. And they had a 54% post-game win expectancy, so that was a little bit of a tough pill to swallow. This team did crush North Texas, another important game to mention in the context of the American. So heading into this game, last week, South Florida played UTSA and crushed them, while Navy basically treated Notre Dame like a bye. And I have a hard time saying that, but it's the truth. They held out their quarterback. A couple guys on the offensive line didn't play. That's not really new. Ira Onihan defense only played 19 snaps. It's hard to come out and say Navy treated Notre Dame like a bye game, but at the end of the day, Notre Dame does not mean much to their postseason expectations. They need to win the American if they're going to get in there. So as usual, their post-game win expectancy, whatever you want to call it, postseason chances didn't change a lot with the Navy loss, or excuse me, the Notre Dame loss. Anyway, injuries for South Florida. Chaz Nimrod's expected back in this game. He's the only main change for this team. Weston Wolf's been out for a while. It's kind of status quo with South Florida outside of Nimrod. Byron Brown at QB. He's been awesome. 64% completion percentage, 14 big-time throws, 9 turnover-worthy plays. He'll take a couple sacks here and there. He's at 12. That's around average. The only real problem the offense has had in regards to him is receivers have dropped a lot of his passes, 10% drop rate. They need to be better. Keyshawn Singleton leads the team in receiving right now. But again, they're getting back a boost with Chaz Nimrod, the Tennessee transfer. And they might get Jaden Alexis back into a larger role. He's a Texas transfer, a former 4-star. He was a good receiver for them in 23, missed all of last year. He played 10 snaps in their last game. First time we've seen him in like 18 months. So I don't know what Jaden Alexis is going to give this team, but having another 4-star power 4 transfer from Texas can't really be a bad thing. Run game is solid for this team. Byron Brown, obviously a huge part of this. He leads the team in rushing. But even Nakai Davenport and Sam Franklin are both at 6.8 yards per carry or better. The offensive line has taken a real step forward this year, which is awesome. They returned most of their starters from a unit that really struggled last year. Now you have Connor McLaughlin and Cole Best being 2 awesome players. And then even like Derek Bowman, he's the only below average starter, but he's still a decent player. They're better in pass blocking, 27th, but still decent in run blocking too. It's a good infrastructure for everyone on this team. Navy's defense has been very bad this year. They're 118th, also 118th against the run, 123rd in coverage. They've allowed over 9 yards per pass attempt in 4 of their last 5 games. Run defense has been a little bit better, but they've still been able to, other teams that is, been able to run the ball when they want to. When you look at the personnel, Landon Robinson, Coleman Kelsey, those are your better to decent players on this team. When it's that limited, that's why your run defense is 118th. The secondary is a mess, and I don't have an explanation for why probably their best player, Ira Oniha, only played 19 snaps. Maybe that was the Notre Dame effect, trying to hold him out for more competitive, important American games. But that's worth noting. This Navy defense, I don't really think they're putting up much resistance against this South Florida offense. So the question is, can Navy score? Is Blake Horvath going to play? I fully expect him to. That game last week was meaningless to them. Horvath has a 63.5% completion percentage, 10.7 yards per attempt. For a triple option quarterback, he can actually throw the ball, which makes things a little bit interesting for this Navy team and why their offense has been so efficient. He's only taken 2 sacks this year. If he's out, if Braxton Woodson starts, this is a big downgrade. Braxton Woodson can do most of the same stuff on the ground, but the threat to pass is dead. As far as the other skill players, Navy, their offensive line's been okay. They do have some injuries, quite a few of them actually, and after that, they only have 2 above-average starters, Ben Purvis and Cam Nichols. Again, some of the players that have been injured for this team include Jalen Acevedo, Grayson Crawford, Torrin Smith. It's just been a tough unit injury-wise for them. If they have to play from behind too, this unit is dead. They're only good at run blocking. Your skill players are actually pretty good that complement Blake Horvath, Alex Texa, Brandon Chapman, more your running backs, both above 5.5 yards per carry. Eli Heidenreich, their leading receiver, and averages 7 yards per carry on the ground. He's a good player for them. You're just going to need to beat USF's defense, which is easier said than done. This unit has been climbing. They're sort of dinged in the metrics by playing Miami and Florida, but they're 79th overall. Their best unit's their pass rush. I will say USF has only allowed more than 7.1 yards per attempt to Miami, and they haven't allowed more than 3.8 yards per carry to any opponent in the G5. So when you isolate for G5 play, this defense looks a lot better. The defensive line plays a nasty rotation. They just need to trim the fat here, man. Like, Denard Flowers and Trevion Mitchell are leading this group. They're awesome. They're just not playing enough. We don't need these rotations. And yeah, this team has a propensity to rotate because they play super fast. But my goodness, man, it's the age-old question. Would you rather have a tired stud or a fully rested, horrible player? And I don't know the balance there, but I don't really think they found it. It might be close, but not quite. Linebackers Mac Harris and Jalen Schuler are awesome. Nothing to be seen there. Secondary has also gotten a lot better, too. You're seeing Duclona play more. Tavin Ward is good. They do have a couple weak links. James Chenault and Fred Gaskin should play less. It's another situation where they're probably playing too much. But that's my only concern. Cut the rotation, trim the fat. Your defense probably rises a little bit based on what we've seen on the field. Overall, I lean USF. It's a lot of points. The Blake Horvath situation could swing me one way or another. I think he plays again, but ultimately, I'm not sure I want to lay 10.5 with USF on the road. Just a tough spot. Got down to 10. Maybe you could talk me into it. Virginia Duke, fun game here. Huge one in the ACC. Duke is a 5.5-point favorite at home. Total is 57.5. First things first, we'll go to the injuries. Chandler Morris went down in their last game. He got hit in the head. It looks like it's a concussion. As we know from long experience, concussion protocol doesn't really exist in college football. I say that because, in the NFL, you get a concussion, almost a lock to miss the next game. In college football, you're probably playing. I don't know why that is. It just is what it is. So, Morris, he's already back at practice. I think he's going to play in this game. Your other injuries are pretty, I guess, they're not the most impactful. Duke does have a couple. Kamari Robinson didn't play in the secondary. They've been without Nick Morris Jr. and Terry Moore on the defensive end. So when we talk about a total, as you can see on the screen, we did take an over. Duke's defense is awful. They're not getting any healthier. Chandler Morris is expected to play. That goes a long way towards an over here. That already makes some sense based on pacing. Virginia 43rd, Duke 31st. Now we can bank on some offensive efficiency and defensive lapses. So let's go into the games. Virginia trying to win the ACC. They just dropped a game to Wake Forest last week. Losing their QB certainly hurt them, but they still finished with an 80% post-game win expectancy. And Wake Forest had a punt blocked in this game. Virginia gave up a punt return touchdown. They fumbled on their own 38. That's how you kind of get this game where it's super volatile. The only two fumbles you have in the game were strip sacks. Those are actually the only 2 sacks in the game. They need to have Chandler Morris over Daniel Kylan. But for Duke, we just saw them lose to UConn as well. And their problem all year has been turnovers. We've seen that in multiple games. Illinois, Tulane, Georgia Tech, UConn. The funny thing with Duke is they're 5-4 overall. They only have 1 conference loss. This team can make the ACC title game and still potentially the playoff if they win it. Obviously, the auto bid would be huge for them. Now, to the over. Chandler Morris having an awesome season. Mobile, big problem. Mainly his receivers have a 7.5% drop rate. He's only taken 12 sacks. He only has 9 turnover-worthy plays. His completion percentage is up at 67%. Chandler Morris has been exactly what they paid for. If they have to go to Kylan, it's a huge drop-off. There's no way around it. So Morris playing would be huge for this team. And again, I think he will. He already is back at practice. And he helps everything. The offense is actually pretty good. The infrastructure, it's noteworthy. O-line is solid. And that's crazy considering all the guys they lost in the preseason to injury. Top 70 in pass blocking. They're 24th in run blocking. Mikhail Boley, Brady Wilson are elite. Only complete disaster is Jack Whitmer. He's playing because of injuries. But this is a good unit overall. As long as you can kind of mask Whitmer, put a tight end over him, whatever it is. Receivers, 45th in efficiency. Rushing, their 55th. Jamari Taylor's really emerged as a complete workhorse. Does a lot of work in the pass game, too, 34 receptions. And then the hodgepodge, low-level receiving transfer room of Trell Harris, Jamal Edrin, Cam Ross has been shockingly good. Put that on them individually or put that on Chandler Morris, whatever the outcome or whatever the reason, the outcome has been positive. You're facing Duke's defense that there's no way around it. They're horrible. They're better up front, but I'm kind of actually of the mind that this is like a choose your path of least resistance. And for most teams, that's through the air. Chandler Rivers is really the only legit player they have back in the secondary. I mean, you lose Terry Moore last year. He hasn't even been back yet. You just don't have enough players. One change they did make Andrew Pellicchiata did start playing more. He's a freshman. 35 snaps last game. Looked pretty good. So I don't know. Maybe there's a ceiling if that's the case. But ultimately, Virginia should have no issues moving the ball against Duke. There's been no resistance for this defense this season. Mensa on the Duke side, 69% completion percentage, 19 big-time throws, 12 turnover-worthy plays. If you could just cut the turnovers and the sacks, he has 18 of those, this team would have more wins, without a doubt. They could be undefeated right now. I mean, they have had some crazy turnovers. They turned it over on the 1-yard line against Georgia Tech. It's a return for a touchdown. Multiple interceptions against Tulane. Same thing against Illinois. This is a good offense. The O-line is awesome. They have one weak link. It's Jordan Larson at guard, and he's splitting time with Bradley Smith, so they could probably trim the fat there. But the rest of it's awesome. Brian Parker is elite at tackle. This is a top 20 offensive line in the country. Helps the run game. Freshman Nate Shepard, 6.6 yards per carry. He's running laps around the rest of the running backs. They're 8th in receiving. One change I didn't like that they made last week, they played 12 personnel on 50% of their snaps. You've got 4 receivers, Cooper Barkate, Sean Brown, Samir Hagans, Angelo Anthony. Get the tight end off the field. I don't need to see Landon King. He's awful. Awful. Your tight ends are awful. Don't need to see Hasley. Play 4 wide. Get the tight end off the field. Your O-line is awesome. You don't need him to block. What are we doing? It didn't make any sense. I don't think that's the reason they lost against UConn, but I don't think it helped. You have like 4 horrible tight ends on your team, 4 amazing receivers. What are we doing playing 2 of the tight ends? Anyway, rant aside, Virginia's defense is good. It's not the easiest to go down and beat them. They have been beat a couple times. 9.9 yards per attempt to Stanford was a weird one, especially because they did a good job against like Tommy Castellanos and Miller Moss. I don't have the answer there. Good edge group, all transfers, Mitchell Melton, Daniel Reichert, Fisher K-Mac. Good defensive backs like Devin Neal, Ethan Minter, Jason Prevert, shockingly from the FCS, have all been pretty good for this defense. I think if you want to beat them, it has to be via the corners. They don't have fantastic corner play. They're rotating a little bit. Charles should play over Carnley. I don't know why they're not doing that. But anyway, Duke, when they're coming in with a good game plan, their best path usually is through the air. So I think that's how you want to beat Virginia. Try to attack those corners. I'm not sure if Duke will come in with a weird game plan again. I lean Duke at the 6. I already took an over at 57. Just a lot of offensive firepower in this game. And with Morris back, this should be one that does make some sense towards an over. Next game. Oklahoma, Alabama. Really fun game in the SEC. Bama continuing to build their resume towards a conference championship. Oklahoma has sputtered a little bit. Part of it, you lose Mateer, tries to come back. You get beat against Texas. You have a ton of O-line injuries. Keontae Lewis gets hurt. You drop a game to Ole Miss. They played Tennessee very close, end up with a win, and now they're on a bye. So you have to think they're probably a little healthier. The way Oklahoma has played, they're a very good SEC team who's maybe just a cut below the Alabamas, A&Ms, Ole Miss, whoever you want to include in there, Georgia. But they're a cut ahead of the South Carolinas, the Kentuckys, teams like that. Bama they have the loss to Florida State, of course, the most perplexing outcome in all of college football, in my opinion. My real problem with Alabama is they've played most of the bottom of the SEC lately. Obviously, they have the Georgia win in Week 5. They shouldn't have won. They have a 20% postgame win expectancy. They beat Vandy pretty soundly. They beat Missouri with a 28% win expectancy. And then you crush Tennessee. You play South Carolina to 5 points, who's awful. You beat LSU, who benched Nussmeier in the game, 20-9. The optics have just been pretty bad for Alabama, and I think there's a couple of problems. But at the end of the day, they're still taking care of business, undefeated in conference. Injury-wise, Oklahoma has a laundry list. Keontae Lewis at receiver, Logan Howland, Derek Simmons on the offensive line, Kobe McKenzie at linebacker, Gentry Williams and Kendall Dobie at defensive back. Alabama, it's nothing new. Quay Rusage, Jamarian Lathan, they've been hurt for a long time. So off the bye, you have to think Oklahoma gets healthier, especially with Simmons has been questionable in some of these games. Keontae Lewis has a head injury. So he's been nearly 3 weeks now. He's taken a couple big hits, though, so maybe not. Anyway, John Mateer, 64% completion percentage. He's regressed since the thumb injury. I would put that more on opponents. He was having an awesome season, but who'd you play? Illinois State, Michigan, who we've come to learn is not very good, Temple, and Auburn, who we've come to learn is not very good, Kent State, and then you're hurt. So, I mean, pretty 5 weak to middling opponents where Mateer looked like the Heisman candidate that he was. Now it's been kind of weak since then. Anyway, 9 big-time throws, 12 turnover-worthy plays is a concern. He's taken more sacks than I would like for a mobile guy, 16 of them. And I think part of this you have to put on his offensive line. They've not been healthy. They need Derek Simmons back. Going to Ryan Fogy has been a complete mess. Now, he's a freshman, so I get it. But even if that happens, they just had to bench Heath Ozada. Eddie Pierre-Louis has been decent in his place, not great. I mean, most of the unit is low average. Like Michael Fosusi is your 5-star, but Jake McCullough, Febechi Nwaiwu come from low-level programs. It's just an offensive line that's good. It's not great, and that's at full strength. When you start chipping away at it, this becomes a problem, which is why you see like the sack rate rise for Mateer. He has less time to throw. The running backs don't have as much room. Not to mention they haven't like settled on one. It appears Xavier Robinson has begun to work ahead of Torrey Blaylock recently. I think they're both fine, but you didn't get what you paid for in Jaden Ott. You can't even put him on the field. Your receivers, Isaiah Satina has been awesome, but who else do you have? Like Deion Burks is wildly underachieved. Keontae Lewis can't stay on the field. Hopefully he's back. I mean, like Giovanni Gibson's been a disaster when he's out there. Oklahoma, again, basically everywhere is good, not great on offense. Now, Alabama, you can beat this team on defense. They have no pass rush. Yanze Pierre and these players have not lived up to expectation. They've allowed some production to, especially opposing ground attacks. Georgia was at 6.9 yards per carry. Vanderbilt, 7.6. Missouri, 5.8. Alabama does have the 33rd ranked run defense, but I think that's from facing like 3 of the weaker rushing attacks in the last 3 weeks, Tennessee, South Carolina, and LSU. It also needs to be noted, like Tim Keenan was hurt to begin the year. He's back now, so maybe that helps a little bit. The strength of this team is the secondary, though. You have elite players almost at every level. They finally benched Amani Jackson, which helped a lot too. He was horrendous. Part of the reason that Missouri game was closer than it should have been. Xavier Brown, Deshaun Lee, Bray Hubbard, and Keon Sabb are all playing well. So Oklahoma probably want to run the ball, use Mateer on the ground. That's your path to scoring in this game. On the other side, Ty Simpson's had a great season, 67% completion, 8.3 yards per attempt, 17 big-time throws, 8 turnover-worthy plays, only 16 sacks. Same as Mateer, but he's played more. And he has to overcome some things. Like the offensive line is good. It's not great. Caden Proctor's having a good season. Jaden Roberts has been okay. They're rotating both guard positions and their right tackle still. So it's been unsettled. If you're only 2 locked-in starters that are playing every snap are Proctor and your center, Brailsford, who's like barely above average. So it's a weird offensive line. They're above average, certainly, but it's kind of just perplexing what they're doing. And then they can't run the ball. 90th in rushing efficiency. Part of this is an offensive line thing. They're 88th in run blocking, but Jam Miller's at 3.6 yards per carry. I don't know why people thought he was so good. He was extremely mid last year, and he's been worse this year. One thing Bama has done recently is use more 12 personnel. They did that around 50% of the time against LSU. You have one full-time receiver in Jeremy Bernard. He has 605 yards. And then you're rotating Ryan Williams, Latsier Brooks, Isaiah Horton, and then your tight ends, depending on how much you want to play 12 personnel. Ryan Williams does have 528 yards, but even last week, he was around 50% of the snaps. They have not played him full-time since like week 1 or 2. He got banged up. He's been removed from that for a while now, so I just don't really have the answers. The drops have been a concern for Williams. He's regressed year 1 to year 2. And really, it wasn't that much of a regression. He had, I believe, 2 100-yard games last year and was largely invisible most of the time. So it's been a weird path, winding path for Ryan Williams. Hopefully he can rebound to the player we've seen in glimpses. They still are 15th in receiving efficiency. A lot of that's just on the back of Jeremy Bernard, though. As far as this team against Oklahoma's defense, Oklahoma has a stout front seven. If you can protect long enough, you can get beat through the air. You can beat them through the air. Aguilar just did for 8.7 yards per attempt. But since week 2, no team has eclipsed 3.9 yards per carry. Great defensive line. Now, they've sustained a couple injuries like R. Mason Thomas. I think he'll play in this game, but they are rotating a little more than you'd like. For example, like Marvin Jones Jr. is playing a lot on the edge. They need to cut the fat there. Inside, they will rotate like 4 guys, but Demonic Williams is having an atrocious season. which is weird. He was good for them last year. I don't have the answer for this, but they need to play Grayson Howell and David Stone more. Trim the fat on the defensive line, and you're probably looking at like a top 10 run defense. Instead, they're 27th. Secondary's been far from elite. Peyton Bowen's been good. Robert Pierce-Jennings is struggling, his counterpart. They've had some injuries back there, so I understand. It's kind of a bad matchup for Oklahoma, and say that with a little bit of an asterisk. They don't really have any weaknesses on defense. If you were to pick one, it's coverage. Unfortunately for them, that's just how Alabama wins. I don't trust Alabama at all. I don't trust them to cover a 6-point spread. I don't trust them against a good defense that is kind of strong across the board. So this is just going to be a lean. Alabama is the better team on paper, but they have not shown the ability to cover these spreads at times this year, especially against good teams. Notre Dame Pitt. Took Notre Dame minus the 10.5. It is currently at 11.5. They hold a lot of advantages over Pitt. Obviously, you had the comments from Narduzzi this week. Unfortunately, he was right. Had to say the sad part out loud, but he did. This game is just not very important for a lot of teams this year. Yes, I get it. Monetarily, it's a big payday for whoever plays Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a huge brand. Notre Dame not playing in a conference means every one of their games is non-con for their opponents. So when you get to this point in the season and Pitt's only viable path, keyword, viable, yeah, they could win out. And if that's not viable, going 3-0, there's a less than 1% chance they do that. So viability, the only path that makes sense is winning their conference championship. They need help. It's not likely, but it is their best path. And here's the key. Just because there are other paths doesn't mean you pursue them. You choose your best path to get to the college football playoff, which is the goal. You don't choose the unlikely paths. It doesn't make any sense to do that. So anyway, Pitt's most likely path is preserving health in this game, trying to win your last two, get some help, make the ACC title, and get the auto bid. No, 2 G5 teams are not getting it. No, don't come to me with that. Don't be ridiculous. Okay, in this game, Pitt has all of that going on. Notre Dame, they need to win out to get into the playoff themselves. They took their 2 L's, Miami and Texas A&M, by 4 combined points. They've looked awesome since then. Now, they're not always getting teams' best shots, and it's not looking great for them recently. Like, Navy didn't play their quarterback for the exact same reason Pitt laid out, Narduzzi laid out. They played Boston College before that, won by 15 points. It should have been much wider. Beat USC. That's the only other marquee win this team has, because Arkansas underachieved, fired their coach. Boise underachieved. It is what it is. In this game, injury-wise, Jaden Greathouse still dealing with that hamstring. It hasn't mattered. They've been great at receiver. Billy Schroth went down, so now your O-line has slowly been chipped away. Ashton Craig's also hurt. Defensive lineman Donovan Heinisch and Gabriel Rubio been hurt. Christian Gray has also been banged up at defensive back. For Pitt, and this is why Narduzzi's even talking about like losing to Notre Dame, they're really hurt. Desmond Reed, he's been out. Keith Govea, one of their best offensive linemen. Jeff Percy at linebacker. Rasheem Biles, he's one of their best defenders. Zach Crowther's on the edge. Blaine Spires on the edge. This is a very injured Pitt team. For offense, Notre Dame-wise, CJ Carr, 66% completion percentage, 9.8 yards per attempt. He's averaging a first down almost every time he throws the ball. He's only taken 6 sacks. 8 turnover-worthy plays for CJ Carr. It's been a little up and down at times, but mostly up. And this offensive line is playing really well, especially considering they've now lost effectively 3 starters, because you lose Jagusaw in the preseason. He breaks his arm ATVing. Billy Schroth goes down. Ashton Craig goes down. They still have received good play, especially from Anthony Knapp and Emil Wagner. And those guys got blasted early in the season. Texas A&M had a field day with those 2 tackles. It's been a lot better recently. And they're just creating a solid infrastructure for the skill players. Not only Carr, but you have the best running back tandem in the country, Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price. Even with Greathouse injured, Faison, Fields, Pauling have been fine. Raridon has 406 yards at tight end. This is a high-powered, efficient offense. And you're facing Pitt, who's very injured on defense. They're 11th overall, 2nd in run defense, but you have to look at this team's schedule. Tommy Castellanos got them for 10.7 yards per attempt. Who else have they played? They did handle Louisville and NC State, who are decent passing attacks. But otherwise, this team has played one offense ranked higher than 85 all year. One. That was Florida State. They've played a bunch of weak defenses, weak offenses mainly. So I'm poking holes in this efficiency metrics of this Pitt defense. I do not think is quite as good as what they've shown because of their opponents. And they have good players like Sean Fitzsimmons, Francis Brew are good on the defensive line. Rasheem Biles is hurt, but Braylon Lovelace is good at linebacker, so they need Biles to come back if they want to have any hope. Defensive back, they've had a lot of players in and out of the lineup. Timon Lyon's been hurt at times. Sean Lee, Kyle Lewis, and Cruz Brookins are good, but you could honestly make the argument the secondary rotates too much. I think part of that is just injuries. So Notre Dame, I think they have a decided advantage offense over Pitt's defense. Then you go to the Pitt side. Mason Heinstl is taken over for, why is the name escaping me? The Alabama transfer. Forget his name off the top of my head. I'll think of it as we go through. Anyway, he's taken over. It's been a lot of the same for him. 63.5% completion percentage, 8.4 yards per attempt, 10 big-time throws, 11 turnover-worthy plays, 5 interceptions. He's taken 15 sacks, 32% pressure rate, so it's not all his fault, but at the end of the day, his pressure-to-sack ratio is still above 20%. It's kind of the same thing. I don't know why, but they decided they needed Eli Holstein. There it is. They decided they needed to make the change from Eli Holstein to Mason Heinstl and have largely gotten the same thing. As far as the infrastructure here, again, very injured. The offensive line is down multiple starters. So Ryan Baer is your only stud right now. The other tackle opposite him, Kendall Stanley, has been a mess. The interior is okay at this point. It was better when Keith Govea was healthy. He's hurt now. So you have a kind of shaky offensive line. You don't really have any running backs of note right now because Desmond Reed's been out. That brings you to 107th in rushing efficiency, 4.8 yards per carry for him. He's only played in 6 of their 9 games. They need him back. Ja'Carrion Turner has been fine. He's just a drop-off. Your receiving game's actually pretty good. Kenny Johnson, Raphael Williams, both above 500 yards. I think that's a solid part of Pitt's team. Now you're playing Notre Dame's defense. I think the Notre Dame defensive line has a pretty clear advantage over the injured Pitt offensive line. This team is 20th in run defense, 13th in passers. They go like 6 deep on the defensive line. Funny enough, they didn't even play Boubacar Traore last week against Navy. Asked Coach Freeman if he was hurt, and they were just like, no, we have better guys that are a fit against the option over Boubacar, who's like a pass rush specialist, which is funny. Like a guy that good didn't even play a snap. Anyway, good at all levels. Kingston, Viamau, Asa, Drake Bowen, good linebackers. Aiden Schuler, Tay Johnson, and Leonard Moore, excellent defensive backs. It's going to be hard to score on Notre Dame. So comments aside, ignore what Narduzzi said in motivation for Pitt. Notre Dame already had a lot of advantages before you even factored in that stuff. We took Notre Dame minus a 10.5. I wouldn't want to get this beyond like a 13 or something. I don't think it gets there, but just trying to advocate for Notre Dame sooner rather than later. Memphis, East Carolina, another big injury game, but a huge one in the American as Memphis tries to withstand some potential losses. East Carolina is still alive in this conference too. So to get here, Memphis, they just dropped the game to Tulane, of course. That was the big loss for them because they had already lost to UAB earlier this year. But they have key wins against mainly South Florida, but beat, like Arkansas early in the non-con for their at-large chances, which are basically dead now. But it's been up and down for Memphis, largely up. The Brendan Lewis injury certainly affected them in the last game, but we'll get to that. For East Carolina, they've played the weakest schedule in the American maybe so far. Their wins include Army, Tulsa, Temple, Charlotte. They got blasted by Tulane in a game that should have been way worse. Tulane had 4 red zone field goals in that game and another one from the 21-yard line, so essentially 5 red zone field goals. They also had a fumble at the East Carolina 2-yard line. This could have been an absolute slaughtering, but Tulane could not punch the ball into the red zone. So anyway, I think it's a pretty weak East Carolina record to this point, even though they still have a chance to make the American championship. Injury-wise, the biggest one in the whole game is Brendan Lewis. He played through that ankle injury in their last game. He could not move at all. Rushing completely erased, barely could move in the pocket, and he eventually had to exit again. For East Carolina, a couple guys, Bryce Weaver on the offensive line, and Cooper Chernovsky played, but limited. I'm not sure if it was an injury or a benching. It should be a benching. He's horrible, but it might be injury. And then Rashid Reason at defensive back. For Memphis, so Brendan Lewis is awesome. Not being able to run has certainly hurt him. You see the pressure to sack ratio rises at 23 sacks now, but he still threw for 300 yards. Even an injured Brendan Lewis is still He's a scary proposition if you're on defense. Behind him, they used A.J. Hill as a backup 1 week, Arrington Maiden another. I don't know who they would go to, but the real answer to the problem is you probably don't want that to be the case. There's a steep drop-off to your backup quarterback no matter who it is. Skill players for this team, very good. This team is 20th in rushing. Lewis is second on the team in rushing, even though he basically didn't have that part of his game last game and a little bit before that too. But Sutton Smith, Gregory DeRosier, Frank Peasant, all above 5 yards per carry. It's been an efficient trio. Cortez Brahams at 745 yards. He's solid. Jamari Hawkins, a compliment. Top 35 receiving and rushing unit, and a good offensive line. They have a pair of weak links inside with Parker Mitchell and Yakiri Walker, but your tackles are elite. Chris Adams and Travis Burke. Guard Malachi Breland's also strong. So that brings you to a top 30-ish offensive line overall. And you're playing East Carolina's defense, who, again, has mostly played really weak teams. When they played the good offenses in the American, they've gotten blasted. Jake Retzlaff hit them for 10 yards per attempt. Even Grayson Loftus of Charlotte was at 7.9. The run defense has been stronger, but like a lot of teams, they're running unnecessary rotations at a lot of positions, including edge and corner. Like Josiah Robinson, Julian Davis are elite, but they're not full-time players. Same thing goes for Tymir Brown and Chance Graves at defensive back. That brings you to 66th in run defense, 106th in coverage. You can beat East Carolina. My only worry is what is the drop-off to those backup Memphis QBs if that ends up being the case and those guys need to play. On the East Carolina side, man, Hauser has been a wizard. 66% completion for Hauser, 7.9 yards per attempt, 19 big-time throws, 10 turnover-worthy plays, only 10 sacks, 22% pressure rate. Wide receivers do have an 8.4% drop rate, but this is a well-coached team, man. They know their weaknesses, and they know that they need to get the ball out quickly because this offensive line is horrendous. Now, they're so well-coached that you see the 22% pressure rate. They're not even getting pressure on Hauser sometimes. When he is pressured, he's evading it. Like, this has been a very good situation for East Carolina, considering this offensive line, man. They have two above-average players, Emmanuel Poku, Panda Askew. Both of them play guard. Panda Askew is not even a full-time player. He rotates with Kyle Long, who is horrible. How the coaches haven't figured this out, I don't know. You have the same thing at tackle with Cooper Trinovsky. He's a starter. He's horrible. This team would have maybe a chance to get towards 100 overall if they would just bench their horrible starters, but they won't. So that's the infrastructure you live with. You need quick game. You need Keaton Hauser to overcome this. And fortunately for him, run game's good. You have four efficient running backs, and especially Engelman's played well of late. Anthony Smith, Yannick Smith, and Brock Spalding have the case as the top trio of receivers in the American, and Javonte Connor's a good tight end. So you can score. And then on defense, you probably want to beat Memphis through the air. They're 20th in run defense. They don't really rush the passer. They're 125th, and they're 95th in coverage. You basically have like William Whitlow up front and not much else. Linebacker's not very strong. You have a couple good defensive backs, Kamari Wilson and Chris Bracey, but it's pretty leaky, being 95th in coverage. You'd think this passing attack for East Carolina has success. It's the foundation of their offense. And right now, they've been efficient. And honestly, it should rise. They don't have the highest pass rate right now. They've just been blasting bad teams. At the end of the day, Memphis is a far more talented team. I did take a Memphis plus a 3. I think it moves. I would be lying to you if I said I wasn't nervous. The Lewis stuff makes me extremely nervous. But the bottom line is if Lewis plays, Memphis should be favored by 3. If Lewis is out, I think there's a chance that you can do enough, even hiding your quarterback, to beat this East Carolina team. Conference USA, best game of the season in Conference USA. It's why it's on the main show. We don't judge lower-level conferences. Kennesaw State, undefeated in conference, plays Jacksonville State, undefeated in conference. Kennesaw State's a field goal favorite. The total is 55 points. It's been up and down for both teams to get here. It's kind of what you get in Conference USA. Arguably, these teams should both have a loss in conference. Both of them won by field goals last week. New Mexico State was the opponent for Kennesaw State. Now, 89% post-game win expectancy still. Kennesaw State was in this position largely because of 13 penalties and 2 turnovers, while New Mexico State played a slightly cleaner game, but it is what it is. Same thing for Jacksonville State. They beat UTEP by a field goal. UTEP had 11 penalties. They threw an interception in UTEP territory. just kind of a little greasy in Conference USA, but ultimately we don't get shutdowns like this a lot. For injuries, JT Pennington played in their last game on the offensive line for Kennesaw, but he was limited. Jaden Kelly and Garland Benyard have been hurt at linebacker. For Jacksonville State, Michael Pettaway has not been able to get over that broken kneecap he sustained in the preseason. He's appeared a little bit, but it hasn't been often. Lance Johnson, Jeremiah Orr, and Reggie Jackson have been hurt on the offensive line for Jacksonville State, which is something to watch. For Kennesaw, Amari Odom has been maybe the best quarterback in Conference USA. 65% completion, 9.3 yards per attempt, 13 big-time throws, 7 turnover-worthy plays. He only has 5 sacks this year. It could be even better as receivers have a 9.3% drop rate. They come in 82nd in efficiency in the receiving game. Most of that is just on the back of Gabriel Benyard, who is their alpha, 568 yards. Christian Moss is sort of your situational wide receiver too. It's a good Conference USA receiving core because of those two. And then your rushing attack, you're 104th. It's decent, not great. Coleman Bennett leads the way with 4.8 yards per carry. Odom is somewhat involved in the ground. He probably would be more involved if he didn't keep getting hurt. And this Kennesaw offensive line doesn't provide the best infrastructure, 84th in pass blocking, 126 in run blocking. Your center's your best player there. They would be better if JT Pennington is fully healthy. He only got through 28 snaps last week. But at the end of the day, tackles Jadarius Lee and Nikola Milovac are horrendous. So teams with good edge rushes can put some pressure on Kennesaw State. But overall, that's been easier said than done. Probably will be the case again here. Jacksonville State, good defense, not great. They're 48th in run defense, 51st in pass rush, 66th in coverage. They've held up against most of the Conference USA teams. Only Nick Minicucci of Delaware got them through the air, 8.4 yards per attempt. And then Sam Houston was at 4.5 yards per carry, which is good, not great. But it's a pretty good Jacksonville State defense. Emmanuel Oyabadejo on the edge, Talon Carter, Jawan Campbell inside, Max Sanders in the linebacker room. That's a good front seven. I'm a little concerned with the secondary. Basically, you've got 2 studs at safety in Trevor Woods, Malcolm Jones. But then your corners have been victimized at times. Kennesaw, if Odom's healthy and you use Benyard and Moss, they should be able to take advantage of the corners for this team. So that's a concern for me. Now, on the other side, they made a QB switch at some point this season. I forget if it was like week 4 or 5. You go to Caden Creel. Not the best passer. He's a game manager. They use a lot of short underneath passing, a 62% completion for 6.6 yards per attempt. 1 big-time throw, 3 turnover-worthy plays. His receivers do have an 8% drop rate, which is not great. But Creel is mainly a runner, and he's at 6.2 yards per carry. Him combined with Cam Cook is extremely hard to defend. Cam Cook is the best running back in this conference. He's a TCU transfer. He's at 5.9 yards per carry. He already has over 1,000 yards. And then when you do throw, you have like a big bodied option in Brock Recksteiner. For the way Jacksonville State plays, this is a pretty good group of skill position players. And the offensive line is better than Kennesaw's. They're top 65 in both pass blocking and run blocking. The only problem I have is injuries have begun to pile up. Of the healthy players, Amari Grayson, Lucas Matrovsky, and Cameron Griffin are solid. Reggie Jackson, when he plays, is also pretty good, but he left the last game early. Injuries basically are going to determine the ceiling of this unit. But overall, I think you have to give the offensive line edge to Jacksonville State. So can Kennesaw take them out of their game? They're actually pretty similar to Jacksonville State. No real clear weakness. 60th in run defense, 73rd in pass rush, 55th in coverage. Only QBs that really got them were Merrimack, funny enough, and Keon Jenkins, who's now been benched. On the ground, FIU rushed for 6 yards per carry, but that's the only mark above 4.2 in conference. Tylen Dunlap, Adam Watkins are very good inside at defensive tackle, and then Barron Hobson's a quality linebacker behind them. So running on this defense is easier said than done. Back end, Jericho Washington, Caleb Offord, pretty good in the secondary. I still think Jacksonville State can have some success running the ball. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's a volatile conference. And when you see like last place teams playing so close to these first place teams, I'm very tempted with underdogs most of the time, especially one as talented as Jacksonville State, who does have advantages. Their skill players are better. Their offensive line is better. If they can dictate the line of scrimmage, this team has a chance to win outright. So that's where we'll lean. I'm not sure if I'll get there, but leaning Jacksonville State. Boise State, San Diego State. In the Mountain West game of the year for this conference, first and second place, Boise State lost their quarterback, Maddox Madsen. He won't play here. In the game he went down, they lose to Fresno State 30-7. 3.1 yards per play to Fresno State's 3.3. What an absolute disaster of a game. 3 turnovers, 11 penalties. That's how you lose to Fresno State so badly. Prior to that, only losses to South Florida and Notre Dame. So Boise's path is winning this conference and hoping for chaos. They probably won't get there unless there's cannibalization in the Sun Belt and the American, but not completely dead. Again, the highest ranked G5 champion automatically gets in. San Diego State, pretty good season to date. They only lost to Washington State, weirdly enough. Marquee wins include beating Cal 34-0. But then go to Hawaii, get blasted on the island 38-6. Now, I thought this might be the case. I didn't think it was most likely. I bet San Diego State. I thought they were a vastly better team than Hawaii. But where the leak occurred, this strength of schedule is horrendous. In conference, San Diego State beat Colorado State, Nevada, Fresno State, Wyoming. That's awful. And then they didn't have Chris Johnson. So only nuance in that game, some people may point to the turnovers. All right, San Diego State had 4 turnovers. What do you want them to do? Well, they were down 31-6 before their first turnover. This team was getting absolutely blasted before they even got in their own way. Hawaii scored 7 points off turnovers. So that was not the problem. The problem mainly was 16 pressures on 31 dropbacks, Denegal holding the ball for way too long, over 4 seconds per throw, and then you have 3 drops. You don't have your stud corner. You can't put the clamps on the opposing offense. That's how you end up in this position. 4 injuries. Again, Maddox Madsen, huge injury. Ben Ford and Chris Marshall have been banged up at receiver. They should be a little healthier now that they've had their bye. Jason Steele, Mason Randolph on the offensive line, they were both limited but should be back. For San Diego State, Jacob Bostic went down. Tana Latuli's out at linebacker for the season, and then Chris Johnson didn't play last week. So for Boise, you go to Max Cutforth. He had a really bad showing against Fresno, 51% completion, 4.4 yards per attempt, no big-time throws, 3 turnover-worthy plays, 4 sacks, a 36.5% pressure-to-sack ratio. Receivers didn't help, 13% drop rate, but holy smokes, that's a lot of sacks. Now, that was cold. He's since had the bye. Essentially 2 weeks to prepare for this game, 2 weeks to get acclimated to college football. You still have to wonder, is this drop-off too much to overcome? And I certainly wonder that because there's not a lot to work with. O-line is imbalanced, 118th in pass blocking, 33rd in run blocking. You have strengths and weaknesses. Casey Cage is a monster, but Dalen Matoyer is horrible. Inside, kind of everyone's around average with Hal Schmidt, Mason Randolph, and Carrion. I think they'll be okay. You need them. You probably need to run the ball too, and they can. 28th in rushing efficiency, 7.2 yards per carry for Dylan Riley. He'll lead a committee of Sire Gaines and Malik Sherrod. But overall, they need that. Receiving game is 106. Chris Marshall leads an inefficient room. Ben Ford's been out. Latrell Caples only has 351 yards. He's your second leading receiver. If you need to rely on Cutforth in this past game, you could be cooked before you even begin. But fortunately, they can run the ball. And as long as you can do that against San Diego State, you should be live. Problem is that's easier said than done. San Diego State 22nd in run defense, 7th in coverage. No one has been above 4.4 yards per carry. That was Washington State. They have not played good competition, but they've still been good when they faced it. Defensive line, pretty solid. Trey White's been good on the edge. In the back 7, like Owen Chambliss at linebacker, Dwayne McDougal, Dalshawn Stanley, pretty good. Chris Johnson coming back would be huge for this team as well. So I don't know if it's going to be the easiest path scoring the ball against San Diego State with a backup quarterback. On the San Diego State side, man, Denegal just regressed a little bit last game. Was not his best performance. 60% completion percentage for him, 8.1 yards per attempt, 10 big-time throws, 11 turnover-worthy plays. He only has 12 sacks. He's just not working with a lot. 11% drop rate for the receivers. They come in 87th. It's basically Jordan Napier's world, and everyone else is pretty lackluster. He has 631 yards. Donovan Brown's at 320. No one else is above 170. Above 170. So you're reliant on Napier to do a lot of work in the receiving game. Lucky Sutton has to do a ton on the ground. He's your go-to every down back, 5.2 yards per carry. You're just a little limited skill position-wise. Fortunately, the offensive line is much better than Boise's overall. 67th in pass blocking, 40th in run blocking. Really good center, and Ross Uluagu. Joseph Borjon's great at tackle. And big thing, no one's a liability. The rest of the group is pretty average, which is how you get a good offensive line for San Diego State. Boise State on defense. Now, they've played a tough schedule. You got Byron Brown, you got CJ Carr, Anthony Calandria. It should come as no surprise this team has been victimized at times. They've also been beat on the ground, but some teams not as good as others, like an Air Force got them for 5 yards per carry. You have one really good defensive lineman in Jaden Virgin Morgan. Outside of that, I mean, like, it's probably time to bench Max Steggy for Malachi Williams. I don't know why they haven't done that. Marco Notarani has been okay at linebacker, not lived up to expectation. Your best players have been Amarian McCoy and Jeremiah Earby in the back 7. But Boise still comes in 72nd in total defense. You can beat this unit. It's just sort of the big question. Boise's played pretty hard teams. San Diego State hasn't. Where does this water find its level in this game? I lean San Diego State. We missed the 1.5 at open. It's moved because of the Cutforth news, Maddox Madison being hurt. I don't think I can quite get there, but we shall see. So that'll do it for today. Thank you guys for watching. Very much appreciated. Let me know what you want to hear about later in the week. Until then, good luck. We will see you later.